Well, I'm very new to HID actually. Prior to joining HID, I came from IDEMIA, and the predecessors to IDEMIA for the previous nearly 21 years, I've been in the biometrics industry, primarily in the PACS area and time and attendance area, and then more latterly, in the latter years, moved into the airport and airline space and gained some valuable experience doing that. And so that's why I'm here today. It's not the only thing HID does, of course, in the biometrics world, but that's what we're focusing on this week. So aside from the fireside chats where we knew what the subjects were going to be listening about, I've always enjoyed the away from stage conversations, and particularly the roundtables that we were hosting. And without prompting people, a repeating theme that's come up specifically in the European audience who we've had here this week is one of regulation, actually. Because we've been talking about how can deploy technology, how can we improve operations on an airport for staff or passengers or check-in or baggage drop and all that good stuff. There's always been a bit of a but. And the but isn't because the technology isn't available, or it's not because there isn't a need identified. But we can't do that because the GDPR is a very sensitive subject, and European Data Protection Board have, with just their opinion, poured a bucket of cold water on that, which we've all seen and witnessed. So that unprompted has been a theme we've seen, I've heard from multiple people this week, which has been interesting. That's quite clear to our customers and to us. And I haven't seen them change significantly, but the pressure on those needs is definitely building. Now, passenger numbers have already exceeded pre-COVID, the pre-COVID world. And by the way, we haven't emerged in the same way because the world is different. So the needs identified are just have more and more pressure growing, which brings to bear how do we unlock using technology? How do we unlock using partnerships? And again, it seems to be not through lack of will that it's not happening. These things take time, I get it, and all stakeholders need to be respected. So it's pretty clear to us actually what's required, and the dialogue hasn't shown anything other than it being clear. I think we are already at the walk-through airport. In fact, I would go as far to say you can breeze through an airport if the infrastructure and biometrics has all been aligned correctly beforehand. And I can think of a couple of examples off the top of my head. There's Abu Dhabi or Changi. If you go to those airports, it really is an entirely different experience to going through airports where there has not been deployed. So the technology is there and it exists to make that a reality. It's a good point. Security has to be at the heart of everything. And I think it's probably, well, it is the single most important part of an airport operation, and the security of the passengers as well. Okay, so that goes without saying. At HID, we have security initiated right at the design phase. The design process has security built in throughout the manufacturing process as well as the tools we build into and bake into the products we eventually sell to be configured in a very secure way, is thought about and embedded and baked in throughout the whole process. Furthermore, when it's actually in sight and on use, we're obviously not touching it and we don't handle any data ourselves, but we have a massive amount of experience how we can help advise to configure things and handle data such that it remains secure, and it's a top priority. When I think of a skeptical passenger, I think the epitome of that is probably my mother, okay, because she's not a technologist at all. She really, really hates it. And I've had this discussion with her. She said, why can't I just take my passport and do it the old way? You know, why do people have to change? And without stating the obvious, okay, things obviously have to change. And for my entire career, I've always said, don't tell my boss this, but selling biometrics is easy, right? It's just about demystifying it. And when you really explain to people what is happening when you're using biometrics, you see a light bulb moment and they think, actually, this is to protect me, not to compromise me. It is unique to me. I'm a carbon-based life form, and this person's asking for some otherwise useless measurements from my fingerprint or from my face to use in their system. So only that can be used to identify me. And if you take it one step further, when you join an organization or you book an aeroplane ticket, you're actually handing over huge amounts of information. Your home address, more often than not, obviously credit card details, your full name, your passport details, and an otherwise useless measurement from your face. Okay, so if I had to ask you for the whole list of things I've just suggested, which would you willingly give to me? Okay? And it kind of flips it on its head. Biometrics is a very important piece of data, but it's actually of no use to anybody else. It's of no use to anybody else. I'll happily give you my fingerprints. What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with them? I mean, I leave them all over the world anyway, on glasses, occasionally a beer glass, my steering wheel, on windows. This is well known, and no one has an issue with that. But when I'm giving it to someone to help me, to keep myself secure, I don't get it. Why should you be concerned about this? And we all do it anyway on our phones. We do it on our phones all the time, and yet when you go to a place at an airport where you know it's going to be secure and only held very, very temporarily, suddenly a different person turns up, and suddenly I'm really concerned about my data, and it doesn't make an entire amount of sense to me. Yeah, and the challenge, by the way, is not just passenger numbers going up. It's security requirements are only going to go one way. And the way we do it actually is we're providing products that are at the very, very edge of an interaction between the passengers and the airport infrastructure. And I don't mean edge computing, because that's the buzzword everybody talks about. I mean the actual physical interaction between me and what I'm carrying and the airport. So we provide very high-end document scanners that validate documents, extract all the information very quickly, very securely, optically, RFID, and directly from the chip. That's something we do. We also have, obviously, the biometric scanner as well, which is, in an airport, is amongst the most challenging place to capture these. So that's really where we play. Now, to answer your question, how do we deploy this on an aging airport without having to rip stuff out? We're not here to replace, we're here to augment. We're here to augment, to be that very front, thin, important layer to the back-end systems that all have to do their job. And we're trying to provide in a very low footprint. Certainly physically, space is not always available, but there are multiple touch points where people have to interact with the airport, and that's where we try and augment rather than replace. And in doing so, free up people from doing repetitive, boring tasks to actually dealing with the exceptions where they are needed. So most people going through an airport, and certainly certain generations, don't need assistance. And we can get ourselves through because we want to use the tech and we're very comfortable using the tech. People who are struggling with it or don't want to use it, okay, that's fine. The airport has an obligation to help those people as well. So that's where you can deploy the customer service and the care where it's required, and not a blanket approach across everybody. So that's really what we're trying to deliver. I'm not sure that airports are going to copy each other, because every airport is different, and they will plough their own furrow. They will do their own thing. But I think what needs to be acknowledged is that don't shy away from this problem. Don't bury our heads in the sand, because those airports that do modernise are going to be the ones that attract more footfall and obviously the airline slots in due course. So I don't think it's a case of copying. It's don't look at technology for the sake of technology. Really identify your problems as best you can, and then bring the partnerships in, because no one can run airports on their own. It really is a collaboration of many areas of expertise. So copying is not the thing to do. It's actually just lean into it and step forward and embrace things.